Everybody, this is Dr. Forth, and I was planning to do a different topic for today, but we just finished terms at a couple of the schools where I teach, and so I have some more things to add, kind of an addendum, if you will, to the mistakes and pitfalls, things to be avoided. So these are some of the things that I've encountered recently in my classes that I'm teaching. So one of the most important things to realize as a student is that the faculty have access to all kinds of reporting, and that means that they can look and see when you've logged in or if you access materials. By the way, clicking on something usually is recorded as an attempt. So whether you click on it by accident or if you think you want to get a little sneak peek, which I do not recommend, the system is going to record that click. And if you're only allowed a limited number of attempts, that will use up your attempt. So you probably don't want to touch it unless you're going to go in and use it. Student emails, make sure you use your email for the school rather than your Yahoo, Gmail, whatever account. I know you might have the other one set up to go to your phone and it's easier, but most faculty are bound by a policy that requires us to use only the student email, and that has to do with security and proper communications. Also, the department can run reports to see if we're communicating with the students or, doing our job to support the students, but they can only see it if it goes to student email accounts. So always use your school email account. Now, for the different learning management systems, the two main ones are Blackboard and Canvas. Blackboard, when you send an email through Blackboard, it's actually going to go to the faculty's separate email inbox as provided by the school. And most schools use Office 365, so it would be an Outlook account. Canvas has its own little email system. So when you send an email in Canvas, it's going to go to the Canvas email system. One other unique thing about Canvas is that you can select which class you're emailing about. And when you do that, it's going to limit, the emails to whoever is in that class. Sometimes I get emails from students who are in a lab and lecture class. They email me from the lab class. And so, of course, I see what class it is. I go to the grade book and look, and I can't figure out what they're talking about. And so I email them back, no, you didn't miss anything. They were talking about the lecture. So if you're doing Canvas, make sure that you choose the correct class to email because otherwise it can be confusing. Pay attention to the technology requirements for your school. I teach at a lot of different schools, and pretty much the rule is you have to use a laptop or a computer because the systems are not very compatible with phone or tablet. And generally, you need to use a Chrome browser. Why is this? Well, because a lot of the course materials come from the publishers who create their own online platform, and the faculty can bring in those activities and quizzes and tests as part of your class. But if you're not using the correct browser and the correct equipment, it doesn't work properly. And the annoying part is, and I know I mentioned this before, but it bears repeating. The annoying part is it's not consistent in its malfunctioning. So sometimes you use it and it works fine or appears to work fine. So that might give you reasonably the idea that, oh, it's perfectly fine to use, whatever browser or use my phone or tablet. But then it comes time for test day, and oops, you get locked out, it gets stuck, or you do your work and it doesn't record any of your work, and you get no grade, which results in a zero. Please don't be in that situation. Make sure that you use the materials or the technology that is required. By the way, most computers come preloaded with Microsoft Edge. So if you don't specifically download and install Chrome and intentionally use that, you could potentially have issues. And I was in a faculty meeting recently where they brought in the IT persons, and they actually said 90% of the tickets, of help desk tickets that they get, are students using wrong technology, particularly that Microsoft Edge. So make sure that you pay close attention to the technology requirements. And if your school doesn't list them, I would go with Chrome browser and laptop or computer if you possibly can. If you still have to use your phone or tablet because that's what you've got, you can download the Chrome browser, and that gives you a better chance of having a successful experience than if you were to just use Safari or whatever. Don't use the Canvas app. I know that's very counterintuitive because generally speaking, apps are supposed to work much better than just going through a web browser. The Canvas app is explicitly buggy and dysfunctional. And I've had real problems with students who have used that, and it locks them out of their assignments, or they get zeros on their assignments that they know they did. Please don't use the Canvas app. Don't wait till the last minute. I've said it so many times, but it's really important. So, for example, I teach a lot of online classes, and they have maybe a 5-day window to take the test. Now, you probably don't want to take it on day one, understandably, but don't do it on day 4 or 5 either. And here's the reason why. If you have an internet outage, or sometimes the servers hosting the test can go down and get stuck just because of volume, or you lose power. There's some kind of weird storm or something happens. Any number of things could occur. Now, if this happens and it's before the due date of the test, usually you can email the professor, say, hey, this thing happened. And it's usually pretty easy to see that the student answered like 2 questions and the rest of it's blank. Nobody would take a test and leave it like that. So it's clear something happened. For me personally, I'll go ahead and reset it and you can go back in. But if you do it on the very last day, and now you're asking me for help and it's after the deadline, depending on the policy of the department or the school, I might not be allowed to grant that. So let's just avoid that entirely. Don't take the test on the very last day that it's available. Maybe not the first day, but not the last, because that way, if anything goes wrong, and things always can potentially go wrong, there's still time to fix it. Okay, so remember, if you do on the last minute and you have problems and it has to be corrected, if it's after the due date, well, then that's an extension. If it's during the time the test is still open and available, we just reset it and you go back in and you take your test. See the difference there? Very important. Contact help desk or IT or whatever they call it at your school for technology problems. So many times I get into the office and I have an email from a student who had a problem the night before, and I can't help them anyway because it's a technology issue. So now I have to send them an email and let them know that they should contact help desk. Help desk is overloaded with tickets. It's going to take time. It's much more efficient. Unless your faculty has explicitly said otherwise, it's much more efficient to go directly to help desk. Technology issues are not generally an exception to the deadline. So don't assume that because you had some kind of technology problem, now the due date doesn't matter. And that's why I was saying always do it in advance of the due date. You can pretty much expect that issues could arise. So don't put yourself in the position of being right up against the last minute deadline and having to worry about that. There's some inherent risk in choosing to use incompatible technology or wait until the last moment. And so realize that if something happens, you might not be able to get that exam extension. I know some of the schools where I teach, it's very, very strict. It's not my call whether somebody gets an extension or not. Extensions are limited, very specific reasons why that can happen. Remember that the faculty have a due date for grade submission, just like you have a due date for your exams and assignments. I have a due date to submit my grades, and I get in big trouble if I don't submit them on time. Very often, that deadline is right after the final exam. So we don't have a whole lot of flexibility on that. Also, if you miss work, you want to try and make that up, if it's allowed, as soon as possible. What I've seen a lot of recently, it's the end of the term, and all of a sudden the students want to make up assignments that they missed way back at the beginning of the term because now they're looking at the final grade and it's not what they would like, so they want to try and go make up previous work. Can't do that. Generally speaking, and it's up to each faculty, but generally speaking, you can't go all the way back to the beginning of the term because the idea is you've already had ample time to make that up and you didn't do so. So you can't come at the very end of the term and try and make it up. And I just want to reemphasize the faculty can see when you log in, they can see when you access assignments. So there's no way to really access it and have it not be noticed. It's the same way in any kind of work computer system. The company has the ability to see what everybody was doing on their systems. As the faculty, I can see everything that's going on in my classes. So definitely, if you tried to give yourself a little preview of the exam, I can see that you did that. Or if you tell me that you attempted to take the test and something happened, I can also log in and see that you didn't even make an attempt. You just realized after the deadline had passed, oops. So don't don't do those kinds of things. So I hope this was helpful for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and you'll be able to see my next videos.